Ave Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus came in with his disciples into the house. Again the crowd gathered, making it impossible for them even to eat. When his relatives heard of this, they sent out to seize him, for they said, "He is out of his mind." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. He's crazy. That's what they said. He's out of his mind because the crowds were swelling and following him because he was doing good. He was proclaiming the good news of the gospel, and he was healing people, and he was driving out evil. And the people were responding. And others said, "He's crazy." Yesterday, there was a pro-life rally in Washington, D.C. I don't know how many people were on the march, but they estimated that over 6,000 people packed the cathedral for Mass. Overflow. 6,000 people. They braved the cold, they braved the snow, and you know what the world said? They're crazy. They're crazy. Well, where's the line between sanity and sanctity? No, they're not crazy, they're holy. You know, there's something that we should really pay attention to in the Old Testament reading this morning from 2 Samuel. If you remember in 1 Samuel, God put a ban on the Amalekites and said to Saul, "Slay them. Slay them all." Now, the point of that is not the killing of the Amalekites. The point is that if Israel is a holy nation and set apart by God for himself to be holy, a people God has chosen for himself, then the whole point of what it means to be holy is to put to death everything evil in my life. What you heard this morning was that it was an Amalekite that did Saul in. Isn't that interesting? God puts a ban on the Amalekites and says to Saul, "Slay them all." And he doesn't. He sets some aside. The king. And it was an Amalekite that did Saul in. I read this morning, yesterday, there's a poll out that says 66% of Americans would limit abortion to the first 3 months. Well, that's a good thing, right? That 66% of Americans would limit abortion. In other words, yeah, we'll limit it, but we won't eliminate it. Well, how much poison can you drink before it does you in? Is it a little bit of poison to drink okay? So at what point do we say either we're going to slay all the evil in our lives and recognize that we are set apart for God, or sin begins to consume us? We have to recognize that there's a war going on, and that the war is really not between you and I. As St. Paul says, it's not against flesh and blood. It's against the powers and principalities, evil spirits. And that there are two opposing spirits in the world. There's the spirit of the world and there's the spirit of Christ. And that if we want to go to heaven, we have to choose Christ in everything. In everything. I was listening to a podcast a couple nights ago by a priest who I know quite well, Father Dennis McManus, who used to teach at seminary in Boston and now is at Menlo Park in California. And he was talking about the difference between purgatory and heaven and how it is that we get to heaven. And he said this, he said, getting to heaven means that we have to want only him and detach ourselves from everything else that would prevent us from choosing him. I thought, I'm not ready for heaven. I'm not ready for heaven because I still have attachments in my life. What are we attached to? What are those things in my life that I have to slay? What evil in my life do I have to put the sword to make me ready to choose only God?
Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui aquae meruisti portare, alleluia, resurrexit sicut dixit, alleluia, ora pro nobis Deum, alleluia.